Hello and welcome to Þorlákshöfn, an old Icelandic fishery village by the south coast and the home of 2,400 people, and it is also the fastest growing municipality in Iceland. So let's once again check out what the tourist brochures won't tell you, starting with the town's surroundings. My name is Gylfi and I will be your guide today. And we start the journey on the map, but note that I am using my geology map this time, or the part of it that covers the Reykjanes Peninsula. And that's because Þorlákshöfn is right here, sitting on this 5,000-year-old lava field that originates from one of the many sealed volcanoes by the plate boundaries that are constantly ripping my country apart. So let's dive down there to this location to take a look around. First facing west along the plate boundaries, where we see the remains of the old crater that's responsible for the town's existence. And its name is Leitin. And not only did the lava flow to the south, creating the plateau under the town, it flowed also to the north from here. So we go with the flow. And we see the lava flow a bit better now from further north. That's where the lava took a turn to west and traveled all the way to the sea, through the land where our capital Reykjavik is now. But we can see the city in the background from here. But let's go back to the volcano and turn southwest this time. And this is the first part of the lava path down to Þorlákshöfn. And as we face south, we see the mountain highway down to town. And even though it's close to noon, the sun is low since most of these video clips I'm using today were shot in late November 2021. So you will be getting more and less late autumn colors in this video. And due to how close we are to the volcanic ridge along the Reykjanes Peninsula, we have seen numerous earthquakes in Þorlákshöfn lately. So we have to ask, is there a chance that Þorlákshöfn might be hit by lava someday? And I would say it's unlikely, but it is just as possible though as the eruption we got in Geldingadalir in 2021. Everything is possible when it comes to the Reykjanes Peninsula. And we dive into town and start by looking back from where we came from, or at the plate boundaries. And Reykjavik is behind this volcanic rift zone in front of us, and we can see the gentle slopes from the sealed volcano up there. These are some of the most efficient magma pumping machines in the world, and there are over 20 sealed volcano formations just on the peninsula. And this ancient lava field that the town sits on happened to create good enough shelter to construct one of the only 5 harbors we have by the south coast. And Þorlákshöfn means the harbor of Þorlákur, named after an Icelandic bishop, and this town is all about the harbor. And when we ask the ordinary Icelander what comes to mind when Þorlákshöfn is mentioned, it would be the ferry to the Westman Islands. And that is because Þorlákshöfn served as a ferry harbor for decades for the thousands that live there. But a few years back it was decided to build a new ferry harbor closer to the islands, shortening the sailing time from almost 3 hours down to 30 minutes. But the design turned out to be a scandal, so the Westman Island ferry does still sail to Þorlákshöfn every now and then. But as for the local people, they don't care about that ferry no more. Its importance is close to zero, since the Þorlákshöfn harbor made a deal with the Smyril cargo line that turned out to be a strong move, which resulted in the construction of a large warehouse, and there are plans to expand the harbor to accommodate even larger ships. So when one door closes, another door opens up, and in this case a way larger door. And the road connection from Þorlákshöfn is excellent, as we are just by this triple intersection that to the east leads us into the official Golden Circle route, or Iceland's #1 cliché tourist route. To the north we can drive over a mountain, or shall we say the plate boundaries, to Reykjavik in as little as 30 minutes, or this road by the volcano we just got back from. And the most recent road is the so-called South Coast Road that connects the Keflavik International Airport to South Iceland, bypassing the capital region. And that road is also important for the fresh fish export, and it is the same road that we were trying to protect while the Geldingadalur eruption was going on, and I spoke about in many of my geology videos back then. So Þorlákshöfn is a well-connected town, just by the boundaries of some of our hottest tourist regions. But even though the ferry traffic brought thousands of people through the town every week, it never became a tourist destination of its own, like the Westman Islands. In fact, there were cases when the tourists would simply hurry out of town, since this part of the matrix has its own characteristics best described by Agent Smith.
It's the smell.
And I know I'm a bit nasty now, but the thing is that there was this factory in town for a long time that processed fish heads with hot air, and the smell from this factory was horrible, since they were processing rotten leftovers from fish factories around, or the last and the worst sort of raw material when it comes to fish processing, the junk. And I have to mention that I did live here in this town for a while, so I know quite a bit about the community. And I felt it through my own nose that this was a factory that no community wants to have. But they were stuck with it for a long time. But to the good news, this smell is over and done with. And I have the feeling that this head factory stood in the way of development for a long time, in addition to influence the self-image of the municipality and their moral strength to go after the tourist market. And they still have this another big problem, or the blowing sand that I would often find in my apartment if I forgot to close the windows. Some of the sand came from the nearby Black Beach, and this is a sample how this problem grew over their heads for a while. It was that bad, and for a while I did not understand why people could live here. I had no clue about it, but things have surely changed a lot, and there have been systematic efforts for decades to get some vegetation to grow on those old lava fields around the town, and every trick in the book had to be used, and they needed to invent some new tricks as well. But it looks good for them now, and the project is now at the point that forestry is starting, but the vegetation cover is, however, still very fragile. So sand gets still carried into town, but way less of it. So within 20-30 years, there will hopefully be a large forest around the town, and they truly need the shelter. Since the Reykjanes Peninsula is the windiest place in Iceland, it's the place where people panic and call 911 when the wind goes down for a moment, because they don't know anything else. But despite the sand, the smell, the wind, the lack of shelter in addition to earthquake and volcanic threat, we do find the happiest inhabitants in Iceland here when it comes to public service and general living quality. Or according to a recent poll that I found while I was preparing this video. And the town already stands out as the fastest growing municipality in Iceland, but the general market conditions are helping them a lot there though. There has been this abnormal rise in housing prices in Iceland, or a problem that started in the city of Reykjavik and spread out from there due to persistent lack of building plots in one of the least densely populated country in the world. Yes, you heard me right. And the city of Reykjavik bears the most shame with some of the other municipalities in the greater Reykjavik region. So people have been moving to smaller towns and villages within an hour away from the city, or where it's possible to drive to work. Also on the windy Reykjanes Peninsula, where even the worst of sheds can be sold now. And finally, this increased demand reached all the way to Þorlákshöfn, but I'm glad to say that they didn't let greed be the ruling factor, since they started to have cheap building plots and overall some of the most economical solutions on the real estate market. And this worked out very well for them, so they have been bringing in new taxpayers to the municipality by the hundreds. And this growing town will by time, of course, create basis for new services in town. But as for the tourist market, they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And they do actually have some hidden secrets for visitors, Like, this is the best place in Iceland to go surfing, but those are my own shots from that beach. But it is cold there. This is no California. But the waves on the south coast have also an attraction for other tourists who even come only to watch and listen to the raw and sometimes brutal force from this harsh coastline west of town. And by the black sand beach east of town, we have a golf course with still some unused potentials. But perhaps the most important thing for a town like this when it comes to marketing is to be true to its origin and sell the wilderness around first and foremost. And they do have this unique hiking path from town leading to this old church called Strandakirkja. And people from all over the world still pledge donations to Strandakirkja in hope of help in times of trouble. And due to how many miracles are attributed to the church, it was for a long time the richest church in Iceland. And I'm linking to another video I have online about that. But by the church, we have perhaps the only free campground in Iceland that includes some service. And that is the local farmer that is doing that. And this is one of my favorite places around the city to go after the northern lights, since there is so little light pollution around there. And it's also a place where I just tend to end up by coincidence during my weekend drive with the camera. So there is some kind of magnetism to it. But I'm not going to dive into that in this video. And north from the church, we find one of my favorite formations around, or this place, where the lava came flowing down this hill from the largest sealed volcano on the peninsula. And a few years back, as I was driving by, the sun offered me a little show by this lava fall. And I remember so well what I was thinking while I was shooting this. Or will we see the peninsula wake up during my lifetime? And I felt as Mother Nature was trying to tell me something. And then, a few years later, this would be my view by Geldingadalur volcano, only 20 minutes away from this place. And the volcano created a lot of business for my friends in Grindavík, who grabbed most of the tourist traffic, since they are closer than Þorlákshöfn. And they do already have better tourist infrastructure due to the proximity to the Blue Lagoon. And Grindavík was in the international news on daily basis for months, but Þorlákshöfn was hardly mentioned, even though it's so close by. And when I browsed through TripAdvisor and the booking sites online, I found out, like I suspected, that when it comes to things to do in Þorlákshöfn, it looks on the surface as it is one of the most boring places in Europe. But for people with a nose for marketing, that's clearly an opportunity, as I see it. But as for accommodation, Þorlákshöfn has some cheap options, so if you're traveling on a budget, I would check them out, also because of the location. And since I have only positive thoughts when it comes to the future of Þorlákshöfn, and I know them that well that I can allow myself to tease them a bit, I think the big issue for them is to find their own mojo after those decades of industrial smell that left them with no options and little self-confidence. But when it comes to self-confidence, the townspeople don't lack anything in that department when it comes to sports. And I remember so well that when I was working here, that they were always talking about the basketball team. What player to buy from the States next? What fish factory would pay his salaries? And then they would made some bets about how long time the guy would last in town before the smell would blow him away. But I always respected the enthusiasm and the ambition when it comes to the local basketball team. But it wasn't until last year, 2021, when the basketball team finally won the Icelandic Premier League. And the townspeople got drunk and celebrated for days. And the party goes on, since their team is currently on the way to win the league for the second time. And the town has, of course, a good sports infrastructure, good swimming pool like all towns in Iceland. And close by the sports center we have the church, also named after Þorlákur Bishop, Þorlákshkirkja, built in 1985. But as you might have noticed, I'm not leaving so much room for history, since that is a simple story, like with so many other fishing villages around Iceland. But there is, however, this one chapter that I have to cover. And the residential area we have in front of us now is from 1973. And that's when the eruption in the Westman Islands took place, which led to the evacuation of all 5,000 inhabitants overnight. Þorlákshöfn became the rescue center for a while. The Harper area would be stuffed with containers filled with household goods, cars, and whatever could be salvaged from the islands. About 30–40% of all houses there were either destroyed, buried under lava, or burned down. And not only did we need to find these people new homes, the large fishing fleet needed to be relocated as well. So the Þorlákshöfn Harper was improved to accommodate a part of the fleet. It was the Scandinavian countries that helped us the most, and a part of that contract was the purchase of 500 residential houses. And many of the first houses were assembled here in Þorlákshöfn, over 40 of them, and they are here still today. Just one of the many reminders about the year 1973, like the street name where most of them stand in Þorlákshöfn, or Eyjahraun, meaning island lava. And I do have a good video online about the aftermath from 73, since those were really strange times here in Iceland. But I'm on my way to end this trip, heading to the pier. But we see a part of the industrial area now. It used to look worse. But I want to mention that there is a company in town that was extremely strong on the Icelandic summer house market. Hundreds of houses have been built here. But they are, of course, now more in the local residential house market, since it's blooming. And for fun, I had to fly over this boat, because this used to be my workplace for some months when I was working in Grindavík. I have no idea about what they are going to do with it. I slept there in the front of the boat for months, and I've never understood how I handled it. But this was a detour, as we head onto the harbor and fly over what appears to be piles of gravel. But it's not. This is perhaps the hottest business around here, or lava rocks that are exported in large quantities, trucked in from the volcanoes north of town and shipped out from this harbor. So it's sold as a raw material to make walls, even bricks. So the Icelandic volcanoes might be closer to you than you suspected. My personal conclusion from this visit is that I see lots of potentials around here, but it's gonna take the place a longer time to recover from its stinking past. And the forestry project will help them a lot, because to be honest, this is perhaps not the nicest town surroundings in Iceland. But I am, however, way more optimistic now for the future of the town than I was 10–15 years ago. But at the end of the day, the final result will always depend on the people who live here, the people they vote for, and if any entrepreneurs with fun ideas would move here, it might make all the difference, as you can see through some of my other town visits, like Siglufjörður. Good ideas have to come from the people. But thanks for joining me this time. And if you are new to my channel, please consider to subscribe and click on like for what you like, because that's what I like. And with that, I'm sending you best regards from my home country, Iceland.